It's standard practice to take your mammalian pets to the vet as soon as you get them, and for regular checkups and immunizations, but not so much for exotic pets like snakes. This is unfortunate, especially because it can be harder to notice when a reptile has a health problem or an injury, since they don't emote the same way that mammals do, or maybe because you don't physically interact with them as often as you do with your furry pets. Taking reptiles to the vet immediately after acquiring them should be normalized, but at very least, it's extremely important to know what signs indicate that you must take them as soon as possible, and also how to be prepared to do some emergency first aid at home. So today we'll go over some reptile first aid preparedness, including what to have on hand in your reptile first aid kit in case of emergencies. Let's slither on into it. The first step in preparing for emergencies is to make a list of all the exotic vets in the vicinity of your home. If you live in an urban area, this will be a lot easier for you. I've heard people say they had to cross state lines or drive up to 8 hours to get to an exotic vet before. And even if you do have exotic vets close by like I do, it's not always easy to get an appointment right away. So having a list on hand with more than one option is your best plan of attack. Your list should include phone numbers, addresses, and hours of operation. And if you find any with emergency or after-hours locations, make sure those are flagged. Reptiles has a state-by-state reptile vet directory you can use as a jumping-off point for your research, and I've put that link down in the description below. My list has a built-in button that links to the Google Maps location of the clinic or hospital, so I can quickly verify the time it would take me to get there, and I can map it instantly from my phone if I need to go in a hurry. I built mine in a program called Airtable, but you could use a spreadsheet or even a note on your phone with hyperlinks to the Maps app that would work similarly. If you have any friends in your area that keep reptiles, reach out and ask them who their favorite vet is. I marked some with stars if they'd been recommended to me or if I'd been there before and had a good experience. Keeping records of your pet's health will also come in handy when you take them to the vet. So make sure you're keeping a log with dates of feedings, weights, shedding, etc. And this could be in an app or a note on your phone or a spreadsheet or a note card, whatever works best for you. Then add the dates of your vet trips as well as any medications and when they're administered. It's no secret that vet care can be expensive. If you don't have pet insurance, then I highly recommend applying for a Care Credit card. I've been able to get payment plans through Care Credit with 0 interest for 6 months to a year in a couple of cases. When our dog's medical bills inched towards $10,000, it was literally a lifesaver. Being a responsible keeper should include having some savings set aside specifically for your vet bills, especially if you have multiple animals. Since you may not be able to get to a vet immediately, the next most important thing is to maintain an emergency first aid kit in your home so you can treat your animal to the best of your abilities until you're able to see a professional. Before we go through what that would include though, it's worth noting what types of issues really do require you to take them to the vet as soon as possible. First aid is just first, but antibiotics and more advanced tests could be the difference between life and death. So in any of the following cases, make sure you don't delay. After near drowning, severe difficulty breathing, wheezing or mucus from nose or mouth, broken bones, cuts deep enough to expose bone, burns or smoke inhalation, suspected poisoning, electric shock from biting an electrical cord, blood and feces, prolapse or repeated regurgitation, rapid weight loss, parasitic infection, choking or straining, seizure or paralysis, or prolonged lack of balance. When in doubt, it's always best to take them in. And even if your snake is healthy, yearly checkups are a good idea. Now, although your vet may not be up to speed on current husbandry practices, that doesn't mean you should disregard their advice. As medical professionals, they'll still know best when it comes to treatment plans for illness and injury. and most likely be able to spot any issues you might have missed, or at very least, put your mind at ease by signing off on a clean bill of health. Hi friends, just a quick interruption and then we'll get back to the episode. You might have noticed that I currently don't try to sell you stuff on my channel from brand sponsorships. I may someday, but to be honest, it's not something I really want to do. So instead, I ask you to join as a supporting member on Patreon. And I wanted to give you a bit more insight into where that money goes and why I think Patreon is such a valuable platform. Firstly, any money coming in right now is not compensating me for my time and effort that goes into research, writing, editing, or producing. Making these videos is not only time consuming, it's expensive. From the various programs and platforms I pay for that are crucial to the process, to the heaps of gear I've invested in or continue to need to buy or upgrade to make this happen. I'm not even close to covering costs yet, but I continue to do this because I believe it's doing some good in the world. I like Patreon because it's a way for you to feel like you're part of this. By investing in something you believe in that brings you joy or has educational value. Patreon's a place that's safe for creatives to be themselves and to be supported for what they create instead of having to sell something. It fosters community and allows me to give back in a way that I feel is meaningful by offering some extra content or some small physical gifts and opportunities to connect through things like Zoom parties. I never want my content to feel exclusive, which is why the episodes will always remain free on YouTube. It's also why, against Patreon's advice, I've offered a $1 tier for those of you who can't afford more but still want a bit of a deeper connection to what I'm doing than what I publish here on YouTube. Even $1 extra a month helps keep the lights on, and I value every person who cares enough to want an extra bit of snake therapy. So if you find any value in the issues we talk about here or in the mission behind it, then please consider popping over to Patreon and pitching in. And if you can't, you can still help out by subscribing, hitting that like button, or commenting on the video. Thank you so much to everyone who's already joined. It really means the world to me and renews my faith in humanity that there are others out there that believe in the message of love, care, and mindfulness that snake therapy embodies. Okay, now back to it. Okay. So let's go through the things that you want to have on hand for your emergency reptile first aid kit. I've put a list of all of these items in the description below for your reference, and they're all things I was able to quickly get off Amazon. So number one, make sure you have a quarantine bin that can double as a carrier for going to the vet. This should be an appropriately sized tub with weather sealing for security. Remember, snakes are master escape artists, and just because your bin has latches does not mean they can't get out. So you're looking for ones that have the sealing around the lip. Obviously, make sure you've drilled plenty of holes in the bin that are large enough for good ventilation, but small enough that your snake can't use them as escape routes. The tub should be large enough to include hides, a water bowl, and some cover, just like their enclosure does, in order to minimize stress. And since they might be in here for an extended period, make sure you have some spare heat tape or a heat mat and an extra thermostat to control the temperatures. If your snake is wounded, you can move them in here with paper towels instead of substrate so you can ensure the injury stays clean. And in the case of mites, it'll be much easier to spot them against the white background. Shipping warmers. If you have a power outage or if you're traveling in cold weather to get to the vet, these will come in handy in a pinch. Nitrile exam gloves to make sure you don't contaminate wounds with your germs or get contaminated yourself. A magnifying glass with a light on it that will help you examine injuries more closely and more easily spot mites. Chlorhexidine. This is a disinfectant that many people use for their enclosure cleaning, and it's also an antibacterial fungicide and antiviral solution that can be applied directly to wounds. You can use it to irrigate cuts or even as a mouthwash in the case that your animal has an injury inside of its mouth. It's good to note, though, that once mixed with water, this will lose effectiveness after 6 weeks. So best to mix up small batches in a spray bottle and label your bottle with the date you mixed it. Povidone-Iodine is another good antiseptic to have on hand and can be used both topically for things like scale rot or mites and to treat the inside of a reptile's mouth in case of mouth rot or mouth injury. You can use a few drops of this in a bath, but don't leave your snake unattended in that bath because the solution should not come into contact with its eyes or its nose. Topical Silver antimicrobial gel is great for burns and wounds after they've been disinfected. Bandaging and applicators. Okay, so some of these things you're going to have in your medicine cabinet already, but I think it's a good idea to have them set aside in this kit and dedicated for it so that everything is in one place when you need it and you're not rummaging through your cabinets. So we have cotton swabs and gauze pads or rolls, surgical scissors to cut bandages, medical tape, waterproof band-aids of varying sizes, and you could even use these stockinettes to secure your bandages. They come in different diameters, so you'll want to get a size that works for the size of your snake, or just have a few different sizes on hand. These will definitely not work for Galadriel. These elastic wraps are also a great way to secure gauze over wounds. Non-lubricated condoms can work for covering wounds on tails, depending on the size of your snake. Tongue depressors will help you look inside of your snake's mouth, and for smaller snakes, you can try popsicle sticks. And both of these can also double as splints. Disposable syringes should be in your kit for administering medication, water, or in the case of severe hydration, Pedialyte. Get the unflavored kind, as your snake will probably not appreciate berry-flavored sugar water. The unflavored kind has less sugar too. Intensive care powdered food is something I've used for my rabbit, but they also make it for omnivores and carnivores. You can mix it with water and syringe feed to make sure your animal is getting the vital nutrients it needs, even if it's not eating on its own. Granulated sugar. A common medical issue that keepers face is prolapse, which is when an internal organ or tissue like the rectum or the uterus is pushed outside the body. This is definitely a veterinary emergency, but being prepared will help you reach a better outcome until you get to an appointment. 1 teaspoon to every 3 ounces of water in a bath can help to draw fluid out of the tissue and help it stay small so it doesn't interfere with blood flow. A kitchen scale should already be in your reptile supply arsenal to track your snake's weight. I weigh my snakes once a month, but if your animal is injured or sick, you'll want to weigh them more frequently to make sure they're not losing weight at a rapid pace. Make sure you write down the dates you weighed them so you can see any loss or gain really easily and share that information with your vet when you go. All of this stuff should go into a dedicated bag or bin that fits inside of your carrier/quarantine bin. Also, make sure you take note of expiration dates on things that may go bad over time and replace them when necessary. I have this little inventory list in here with the dates I bought things and their expiration dates. This will make it a lot easier for me to check without having to pull everything out and look at each thing individually. I'm also keeping this on a live document like I do with my vet list with links to the products so I can easily schedule the purchase of replacements on a calendar. Now that I have all this in one place, I feel much more prepared for an emergency. But to be honest, I have no medical training. So I've registered for a reptile, amphibian, avian, and small mammal emergency first aid certification course to get myself more educated. If you're interested in what I learned from that, make sure you're subscribed and I'll make a follow-up episode after I complete it. It's an online course that's very affordable, and if I like it, I'll share the link so you can check it out yourself. If this information has helped you at all, please make sure to give the video a like before you go and let me know in the comments if I missed anything that I should add to my first aid kit. One last thing I wanted to mention regarding emergency situations is to try your best to stay calm. I know that's easier said than done. I've totally panicked in emergency situations myself, but I wasn't at all prepared back then. And now that I have this kit and some extra knowledge under my belt, I feel more confident I'll be able to manage my stress level better, which is what your animal needs from you in times of trouble. Snakes can detect pheromones that you release when you're anxious or scared. So the first thing you can do to support them is to try to maintain your composure and not add to any distress they're already feeling from being injured. So go forth and get yourself as prepared as possible ahead of time, and if something bad happens, take a deep breath and then take the steps you can to help them through it. And find a good vet right now so you're not scrambling to find one during a crisis. I'm Shira, and this is Galadriel, and we'll see you again next time for more snake therapy.